Trump vowed to end the war between Russia and Ukraine in 24 hours. It's day 88 now. Rubio delivers the ultimatum brain, war's a terrible thing, but it's not our war. We didn't start it. They're smashed to smithereens. So they're serious about peace. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on April 18th that President Donald Trump will walk away from trying to broker a Russia-Ukraine peace deal within days unless there are clear signs that a deal can be done.
We're not going to continue with this endeavor for weeks and months on end. So we need to determine very quickly now, and I'm talking about in a matter of days, whether or not this is doable over the next few weeks. If it is, we're in. If it's not, then we have other priorities to focus on as well. I think it's important to remind everybody that the Ukraine war is a terrible thing, but it's not our war. We didn't start it. The United States has been helping Ukraine over the last 3 years, and we want it to end. And so we've talked about outlines of both sides. I thought we had positive meetings yesterday. Obviously, the Ukrainians have to go back home. They have to run it by their president. They have to take into account, their views on all of this, and we hope to hear back from them very soon. This is important, but there are a lot of other really important things going on that deserve just as much, if not more, attention. What we're talking about here is avoiding thousands and thousands of people from dying over the next year. We're trying to avoid that. So if they're serious about peace, either side or both, we want to help. If it's not going to happen, then we're just going to move on.
Earlier, when asked how much time Russia had to respond to the American ceasefire proposal, Trump said,
"We'll see what that will be. We're going to be hearing from them this week. Very shortly, actually, and we'll see. But we want it to stop. We want the death and the killing to stop."
There was no immediate comment from Paris, London, Berlin, Kyiv, or Moscow. In Rubio's statement, which coincided with signs of some progress in U.S. talks with Ukraine. Following Rubio's remarks, the Kremlin said progress has been made on Ukraine peace, but contacts complicated with the U.S. Contacts going on are quite complicated because naturally the topic of peace settlement in Ukraine is not an easy one. Russia is committed to resolving this conflict, ensuring its own interests, and is open to dialogue. We continue to do this. We believe that some progress can already be noted. This is the progress regarding this temporary moratorium on strikes against energy infrastructure that Russia has been adhering to. The Russian Federation has been abiding by this moratorium, which is not the case for the Ukrainian side. Therefore, certain developments have already been achieved. But of course, there are still many complex discussions ahead. By now, no contacts between Putin and Trump have been planned for this week. But at the same time, established contacts between Russia and the U.S. allow us to arrange such a conversation quite swiftly if needed. Rubio's comments underline mounting frustrations in the White House over a lack of progress and pushes to settle a growing list of geopolitical challenges. Trump promised during his election campaign to end the war in Ukraine within his first 24 hours in the White House. He moderated that claim on taking office, suggesting a deal by April or May as obstacles mounted. He has pressured both sides to come to the negotiating table, threatening tougher sanctions on Russia or an end to billions of dollars in U.S. military support for Kyiv. Both Ukraine and Russia showed up for U.S. brokered talks in Saudi Arabia, which resulted in a partial ceasefire, but nothing more. Meanwhile, the war has continued, including a recent Russian missile attack that hit Sony in northeastern Ukraine, killing 35 people. An attack Trump called a mistake. If Washington walks away, efforts to broker a peace would likely founder because no other nation is able to bring similar pressure on both Moscow and Kyiv. Trump expressed dissatisfaction with the ongoing war in Ukraine and remarked on Zelensky's handling of the conflict.
He has
I don't hold Zelenskyy responsible,
No.
but I'm not exactly thrilled with the fact that that war started. That was a war that would have never started if I were president. You'd have millions of people living right now that are dead. You'd have cities that would be open and thriving, and they'd have their beautiful turrets. Those turrets are the most beautiful in the world, but they're not with us any longer. They're smashed to smithereens, laying on the ground in a million pieces, getting hit by rockets, bombs, and bullets. And so I'm not happy with him, and I'm not happy with anybody involved. I think it's a war. I know it's a war. It didn't happen for 4 years. It was never close to happening. It was never even a thought. And I spoke to President Putin about it a lot. It was the apple of his eye, but there's no way he would have ever gone in if I were president. Now I'm trying to get him to stop because, as you know, Russia's a lot bigger. It's a bigger military force. And if you're smart, you don't go involved and get involved in wars that you can blame the man that was sitting in this seat, Biden. He didn't know what the hell was going on. But I can guarantee you that, and everybody agrees to it, if I were president, that war would have never taken place. I'm not blaming him. But what I am saying is that I wouldn't say he's done the greatest job. Okay? I'm not a big fan. I really am. I'm not a big fan.
Meanwhile, Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister and Economic Minister, Julius Verodenko, said the Washington and Kyiv have signed a memorandum of understanding on a minerals deal that is yet to be finalized. Today, we took a step towards a joint economic partnership agreement with the United States. Ukraine and the United States of America signed a memorandum which demonstrates the constructive joint efforts of our teams and the intention to finalize and conclude an agreement that will be beneficial to both our people. It's very Danko noted that work needs to be done to finalize the text of the minerals agreement, followed by the signing of the agreement, adding that the agreement needs to be ratified by the parliaments of both countries. During a press conference with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni in the White House, Trump said President Zelenskyy has said he has evidence that China is supplying weaponry or ammunition to Russia. Do you have any evidence on this one? And also, he said we could see a minerals day of signing this week.
Well, we have a minerals deal, which I guess is going to be signed on Thursday, Scott, next Thursday, soon. And I assume they're going to live up to the deal, so we'll see. But we have a deal on that. No, I have no comment on that. I have no idea. That's his statement, not mine.
While the exact language of the current draft agreement has not been released, previous editions reportedly included an even split of the revenues from extracted resources and joint management of that fund. However, the deal has gone through several iterations, even after the infamous altercation in February in the White House, when Trump harangued Zelenskyy for alleged ingratitude after Zelensky's described frustration of being strong-armed to sign a deal on the spot. Both sides have been very tight-lipped about details of the agreement ever since. Once the document is finalized constitutionally, it will still require ratification by the Verkhovna Rada. Ukraine's legislature, the same as the U.S. Constitution, would require Senate approval for such an agreement after being signed by the U.S. President. The U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told AFP that a signed deal is targeted for April 26th. Russia's envoy to the UN, Vasily Nebenzia, said a ceasefire in Ukraine is unrealistic at this point, as Kyiv fails to honor the moratorium on striking energy infrastructure. Nebenzia also slammed Ukraine's Western backers for remaining silent as Moscow awaited further directives from Putin.
Perhaps he knows better. What I don't know, how close are we to the ceasefire, is a big question to me personally, because, as I said, we had an attempt on a limited ceasefire on energy infrastructure, which was not observed by the Ukrainian side. So in these circumstances, to speak about ceasefire is simply unrealistic at this stage. And today we were asked the consultations whether we would be ready for a comprehensive ceasefire. We said that there are big issues with the comprehensive ceasefire because we remember Minsk agreements, how they were misused and abused to prepare Ukraine for the confrontation, and they were completely in non-compliance with the Minsk agreements from day one. On April 2nd, we circulated a letter with the list of these violations from 18 to 28th of March as an official document of the UN Security Council. To offer a few concrete examples. Just hours after the conclusion of the Russian-US talks, Ukrainian forces struck a facility in the settlement of Kavkazskaya, which plays a key role in transferring oil into the Caspian pipeline consortium system. This resulted in a fire covering 1,700 square meters. On March 21st, multiple attacks were carried out near the Kursk nuclear power plant, and the Sudzha gas metering station in Kursk region was sabotaged. On March 28th, that station was completely destroyed using HIMARS rocket systems. Between April 8 and 9, a terrorist attack targeting the Karinovsky compressor station, a key component of the Turk Stream pipeline infrastructure, was hit. Then on April 9th, 2 drones were directed at the Temryuk gas distribution station, putting the city and port's energy supply at serious risk. Today, the armed forces of Ukraine carried out an attack near the Zaporozhskaya nuclear power plant. A drone was neutralized 300 meters from the plant's premises near Building G, which houses the world's only full-scale reactor Hall simulator. These repeated violations highlight Ukraine's unwillingness to engage in any serious effort towards de-escalation or peace. We continue to share updated reports about Kyiv's non-compliance with our partners and with relevant international institutions. And today we posed a question to the Western backers of the Kyiv regime, whether they are ready to pressure Ukraine and make Zelenskyy observe the terms of the moratorium on the energy strikes. There was no clear answer. As I said, nobody spoke. Just usual attempts to justify everything Kyiv regime does and blame Russia for everything. We will report this to Moscow, and this position will be duly taken into account. As of now, no new directives have been issued by the President of Russia regarding the status of the moratorium. We would like the Europeans to stop arming Ukraine and encouraging it to continue the conflict, to convince it to accept the conditions that would lead to resolving of this crisis. So far, we don't see it, neither on the level of the European Commission, or the European Union, or individual European countries. They are all belligerent. Many of them, most of them, are belligerent. They don't talk peace. They want Ukraine to continue. Where it will lead Ukraine, they don't care, I'm afraid, because it leads it to an abyss.
Meanwhile, Bloomberg reported, citing undisclosed sources, that U.S. officials told European counterparts during meetings in Paris on April 17th that they aimed to secure a full ceasefire in Ukraine within weeks. The meetings included discussions between U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff, and French President Emmanuel Macron. Ukrainian officials were also present.